Thanks so much, everyone. It's really exciting for me to be back in Turkey. This is my third time to Turkey and first time to Izmir. I think I'll stay here. It's so sunny and beautiful and great food, too. I especially like coming to Turkey because when I worked at Alibaba back over in China, we kept noticing when we looked at the data for our website, there was one country that seemed to be so active, you know, with people buying and selling on Alibaba. And really, it was Turkey. And so when I came to Turkey and I visited the Grand Bazaar and I saw the trading culture, I said, okay, now I understand that really sort of deep in the culture here is a long history of trading and buying and selling, importing and exporting. And just the gentleman I was just sitting next to actually told me that he used Alibaba himself. So I feel in a way like it's coming home to the sort of home of the original marketplace. And if Alibaba is maybe the largest online marketplace now, of course, when I look at the Grand Bazaar and that kind of marketplace, I feel in the offline world, Turkey really has some of the best marketplaces in the world. So I want to first talk about myself, how I got here. I worked at Alibaba from 2000 to 2008. And I was a vice president in a number of roles. I ran our international marketplace. I worked on the marketing for the company as we were building a global brand. And then when I left the company in 2008, I said, what can I do? I think I've witnessed a really inspiring success story of a school teacher who went on to build really you could argue, the largest e-commerce company in the world. So I said, what can I do? And I decided what I wanted to do was share that story with entrepreneurs and students around the world. And so I sat down with the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma, and I said, hey, Jack, I want to make a film or write a book to tell my experience, the good and the bad, the successes and the mistakes that we encountered along the way. I said, are you okay with that, Jack? And he said, sure, go ahead. And I said, but Jack, you realize, don't you, that I'll also criticize you at times. I had a positive experience here, but I'm going to tell the good and the bad. And he said, you know what, we have a responsibility to share our experience with entrepreneurs, so please go ahead and do it. And so the first thing I did was I made a documentary film called Crocodile in the Yangtze. And I'm going to be at the last slide. I provide you a link and a password if you want to go watch it for free yourself. Just to see sort of the story of Alibaba in more detail. I made this film gathering footage from all around the world and went to film school for a month, made a documentary, and then traveled around to film festivals and universities sharing the film with students. I know it's been seen in Turkey before. And then when Alibaba got in the news a lot about 2 years ago with its IPO, a publisher approached me and asked me if I wanted to write a book. So I wrote a book called Alibaba's World, and I've been traveling around with that ever since. So the journey's taken me to about 25 different countries, and my main mission is to share this story with other entrepreneurs who can learn from it. So I want to get now into the story of Alibaba. And first, how many of you, if I could see you raise your hand, how many of you have heard of the Alibaba website before? I guess most people. How many of you, raise your hand, if you've used Alibaba either to buy or sell? Okay, so that's more than most countries, believe it or not, because outside of China, the only people who really use Alibaba are a lot of times importers or exporters. Some people use it for shopping, but here's the sort of homepage of AliExpress, one of their websites. And if you look at it, it looks just like about any other website. In fact, if I'm totally honest, it looks even a little boring. So it's hard to know that there's an interesting story behind that. But just like any entrepreneur here knows that your sort of product is one thing, but the story behind it involves a lot of ups and downs, a lot of emotion. And so what I want to do is take you behind the scenes of the website, and I'm going to show you a video clip from my film. It's about 2 minutes, and it's for a small company event that the founder of Alibaba brought everyone together. So this was an event I attended, the 10-year anniversary of Alibaba, where he brought together the employees for a small event. I think it'll give you a sense of the company culture and also the personality of the founder, Jack Ma. So we'll go ahead and show that video right now.
It was an amazing feeling to look around Yellow Dragon Stadium and see that our team had grown to fill 16,000 seats. It was hard to believe that this was the same Chinese internet company I joined 10 years earlier, just as it moved out of a small apartment. And leading us through our improbable journey was this former English teacher, Jack Ma. In 1999, he and 17 friends had started Alibaba.com in his apartment. I greeted Jack as he walked in. I had worked as a vice president in his company for nearly 10 years, as our team survived the internet bubble, fought a war with eBay, and managed to build China's first global internet company. I settled into my seat and wondered, how would Jack address us on this important night? And then, just like any other billionaire in the same situation, Jack took the stage. Well, it may not have been typical for a company chairman, but it wasn't surprising coming from Jack. People outside the company assumed he was crazy, but those of us inside the company knew better.
Okay, so just another day in the life of an Alibaba employee. You know, that was the Alibaba employees and the customers all in a stadium. You can see that Jack Ma has his own kind of crazy personality. And this was a case where he and the managers dressed up in front of the employees to kind of make fun of themselves at this 10-year anniversary. But I'll tell you a little bit more about Jack Ma, because I've worked with him closely for a long time. So Jack Ma, as many of you know, he really started his career as a school teacher. He was an English teacher. He loved languages, and he learned English from foreigners who visited the West Lake in Hangzhou. He would walk around the West Lake and chat with them. He never lived overseas. He never really had any business experience. But still, he went out and built a global company, which Alibaba now, I just checked yesterday, is worth $180 billion. Jack Ma is one of the top 3 richest people in China, but I don't think really he would view that as his most important accomplishment. I think what's more important is he built a marketplace that now sells more products than eBay and Amazon combined. So if you want any more evidence of that, if you can look at last year on November 11th, there's a holiday that Alibaba pretty much invented, which is a shopping holiday called Singles Day. And the idea was that people in couples have Valentine's Day, but singles also need to celebrate and make themselves feel better, give themselves a gift. And so they chose November 11th, which the 1-1 looks like sort of 2 single people standing there. And they made a shopping holiday just out of thin air. This shopping holiday has grown so much over the years that now, they include James Bond in their television event. And last year, in 24 hours, they sold $14.3 billion worth of products on Alibaba's consumer websites in China. That's more than the total sales of Black Friday, Cyber Monday combined. And that's a 24-hour period. That's more e-commerce than most countries do in a year. And so the big question people had, and I'll get to that in a sec, but one thing I'll add is that the important thing is now they're showing that, yes, there's a shopping mall in everyone's pocket. And so for that Singles Day, almost 70% of the sales were done on mobile devices. So the question is, how did this happen? So that's what in the next half hour I'm going to hopefully answer this question for you. And I'm going to talk today about inside the rise of Alibaba, what Turkish entrepreneurs can learn from Alibaba's experience, how e-commerce is reshaping emerging markets, and then I'll go through Alibaba and the 40 lessons. So the last chapter of my book is Alibaba, the 40 lessons. I don't have time to go through them all today, but I'll give you some of the highlights I think are relevant to the people here in the audience. But first, I want to go back in time. In 1999, when Alibaba was founded, I was living in Beijing, I was reading the headlines, and really at that time there were two companies that everyone was talking about. There was Amazon, which here you have Jeff Bezos. That was the year Jeff Bezos was on the cover of Time magazine as the person of the year. And the other company was eBay. And the only question out there was which company would dominate the world. Was it going to be Amazon or was it going to be eBay? And in China, people all just sort of assumed that at a certain point those companies would come to China and would actually become very huge within China. And so I want to talk about how the West was won, because if we see how e-commerce grew in the US and maybe Western Europe, we can see the differences of what happened in the US and what happened in countries like China. So really what happened, if you look at the evolution of retail in the US, first you had on the left here, the small shop owners out on the frontier in the US. Over time, over more than 100 years, these grew, they consolidated into big shopping centers or department stores, big box retailers like Walmart. And finally, when Amazon came along, it was basically taking this very efficient retail infrastructure and just adding one evolutionary step. So instead of keeping all the inventory in all these stores throughout the country, Amazon said, look, we'll put our store online and just move the retail to warehouses. But already the systems were linked together, is very efficient, really good logistics, payment. So Amazon was sort of an evolutionary step. There was one thing that was missing. Amazon was all about selling new products. But there were secondhand goods and collectible items like these Pez dispensers. So that's really where eBay came along. And eBay, basically their model was if you have one unique item and you want to find what's the market value of this, you put that unique item online and let people bid up the price in an auction. So that's why eBay works so well for secondhand goods. So the way that China and retail and e-commerce grew in China was very different, and it has important implications for businesses outside of China. So China also started with, if we go back, it started with the small shop owners. When I got to China in 1994 for the first time, China was coming out of communism. There wasn't much of a retail infrastructure. So all of the retail was these small mom and pop shops. And so in 1999, when the internet was really getting started in China, I remember when everyone thought eBay or Amazon were going to sort of conquer the world, people said, look, e-commerce in China will never work, or at least it's 100 years off. Because the reasons they gave, they said, well, actually less than 1% of the population was using the internet. They said, well, people don't use credit cards. I know in Turkey a lot of people use credit cards, but in China people didn't use credit cards. There was poor logistics infrastructure, a lot of government controls of the internet. And then a big reason people said e-commerce will never work is they said, people in China don't trust each other. That e-commerce really depends on a buyer and seller who don't know each other to do a deal online. So trust was a really big barrier. And then the last thing people said was, they said, well, that's great, but all the internet experts are in Silicon Valley, so we don't have the people and the human resources to do it here in China. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you, again, about a 2-minute clip. And the clip is from, a video is from Jack Ma's first day speech to his co-founders. Basically, he gathered his friends into his apartment and gave them a speech to try and encourage them to overcome all these barriers you see here, all the reasons people laid out of why they couldn't succeed. Luckily, they were crazy enough to believe they were doing something so historic that they videotaped it. And so I'm going to show you the clip from that speech of the motivational speech he gave his team.
年的时候，我记得我做出的决定，我自己跟自己讲，我可能改变了自己一生一辈子所从事的事业。而今天， 我想把大家请过来，跟大家共同探讨以后至少5年、10年我们要做的事情。那么阿里巴巴我们将做成怎么样？我想，从黄页的时候我就提过，黄页所要瞄准的对象不是国内战略，而是国际战略。我们所有的竞争对手不在于中国，而在于美国的硅谷。如果说第一，我们把阿里巴巴定位，就把它作为国际站点，我们不要把它定位是国内站点。第二个呢，我想就是我们要学会硅谷人的一种拼劲。如果说我们是早上8点钟下班，8点钟上班，5点钟下班，这个不是搞高科技啊，这个绝对不是我们阿里巴巴能成功。如果说我们以这种精神，反正我上班了，就是8点钟上班，5点钟下班了 ，OK， 赶紧去其他地方。人家美国人强就强他的硬件，强就强他的系统建设，这方面确实比你早。但是玩信息玩软的，中国人的脑袋绝不比你们长。我们在座的所有的人的脑袋绝不比你们长。这就是我们敢跟美国人斗的一些东西，我们绝对敢斗。如果我们是好的 team、好的团队，我们自己知道我们想做什么，我们想干些什么的时候，我相信我们是可以以一当十。我们能够赢政府机构，我们能够赢其他很多的民营企业、大的这种企业的是什么？凭的是我们的精神、我们的意识、我们的创新概念，以及我们这种拼劲才能去斗。否则的话，跟他们有什么区别呢？谁都知道，Internet 是个泡沫。我刚才讲的危机感就是Internet 这个泡沫现在越来，什么时候破？然后呢，把股票掉了，哎，eBay 股票会涨。那么有一天eBay股票涨了以后，可能阿里巴巴社区的股票涨，所以不要担心。我觉得 Internet 这个梦不会破，这个泡沫不会破。我们为后面的3、5年所付出的代价是非常惨重，只有这样的惨重的代价，才会赢得我们未来的取得的成功。那么目标是2002年，阿里巴巴上市。
Okay, so when you watch this video, you know, now it seems like So now it seems, when we know Alibaba is so huge, we think, oh, of course it makes perfect sense that this guy in his apartment made this huge company. But just imagine if you saw someone here in Izmir and looked like this team, kind of a little bit confused, not sure what they're doing, and they told you, we're going to build a company that's going to be bigger than Facebook, you'd probably say, well, that's cute, but it's a little crazy. And so that's basically what it was like when I was traveling around with Jack Ma, right when they moved out of this apartment. A lot of people said, oh, that's cute, I admire your dream, but you know, it'll never happen, okay? But the important thing is that Alibaba's dream and vision from day one was to be a global company. They didn't want to just be the biggest in China, they wanted to be the biggest in the world. And I remember, you know, Jack Ma liked to say at that time, in the internet era, to build a global company, really all you need is a human brain, a computer, and internet connection. And so when I talk to folks, you know, like here in Izmir, you know, I would challenge people to think, you know, of truly global. So a lot of people probably are thinking, I'm going to build the biggest company here in Izmir, or maybe the biggest in Turkey, or maybe we're going to build the biggest in the region. But also, I think with the global mindset of people in Turkey, it's perfectly legitimate to dream of building, you know, even one of the biggest companies in the world, because in the internet era, it doesn't matter where you are. In fact, to attract people to work here near the beach in the sunshine is actually, it's a pretty attractive place to come and work, and you can probably find very talented people for even less money than out in Silicon Valley. So that's an important lesson I learned from Alibaba, is to think globally, even from day one. So where did Alibaba go from that first day speech? So actually, the Alibaba story, it really started as an English language import-export website. The idea was to connect buyers and sellers, wholesalers, importers and exporters online into a marketplace. And when Alibaba started, we had a lot of big competitors that were already listed on New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ and worth billions of dollars. So our big competitors were companies like Ariba, Commerce One, Global Sources, Vertical Net. But what all these companies were doing is they were trying to make a platform and system to kind of control businesses, not to empower them. They were trying to control them and get them into their transaction platform. But what we did, and I think in Turkey this will be very familiar, we felt we understood the entrepreneurs who wanted to use our website. And in China there's a saying that it's better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of a rooster. I don't know here if there's a similar saying, but the idea is rather than working for some huge multinational, people in China, they wanted to work, even if it's a small company doing ball bearings or inner tubes, this was something they wanted to be their own boss and be online. And so we designed Alibaba almost like a trade show. So instead of trying to control people and have all their information and transactions online, we basically gave them a booth on a marketplace. And we said, you know what? You can come here, you can post whatever products you want, you can describe it how you want, you can decorate your booth however you want, and you have all the power and all the control. And that's something that really caught on, and I think it's what separated Alibaba from our competitors. And then a big lesson was that we wanted to bring the human experience of commerce online. So when I walk around, a couple days ago I was at the Grand Bazaar, and you can just see and feel how people do business. It's similar to how people do business in China. It really starts with the relationship, building the trust, communicating, getting to know each other, and then you start getting to a deal and come negotiate the price. So we made Alibaba really a community where people would come on and have discussion boards. And then in China, where most of our sellers were, we had these offline communities where people met face to face, just like this. So the idea was not that we thought technology would solve all the problems that humans have. It was more that we wanted to empower people to do what they do best, which is to communicate and do business that way. And so what happened was Alibaba outlived all of the big Western competitors, became the largest business-to-business marketplace. And then Jack Ma came to me one day and said, hey, we're now going to do something, really bet the entire company on taking on another Goliath, and that's going to be eBay. And so we had done pretty well at the wholesale business, but Jack said, you know what, we're going to build consumer e-commerce in China, and we're going to take on eBay. Now, I know there's probably some people here from eBay or eBay's partners. This is nothing against eBay, but I think by giving you the honest understanding of how Alibaba beat eBay in China, you can apply these same principles to your own businesses. And so really what we did is we sort of declared war on eBay. And again, people said it's never happened, it's crazy. Some investors who met with Jack Ma basically got up, walked out of the room, and before they slammed the door said, it'll never work, eBay will win. But I think we knew something that maybe eBay didn't realize. eBay came to China with their auction platform to sell collectibles. But in China at that time, there were no collectibles. I mean, the only thing that people had really, coming out of communism, coming out of really a lot of poverty, only thing people had was Mao's Red Book, and it's something nobody wanted anymore, okay? There wasn't a market for this. What people really wanted was a storefront, a place they could sell their own products. So we launched something called Taobao, which means search for treasure. And Taobao, if you want to think of it in sort of Turkish terms, Taobao was sort of like the Grand Bazaar, where people could buy a stall and they could sell their products online. We didn't have any inventory that we kept ourselves. We built it as a marketplace where, just like the import-export marketplace, we allowed people to post the products, describe their business, and really have their own storefront. And so it really basically took the offline small shopkeeper community and just moved it online. And so an important part of this was we built a website that I think better fit China. And so I'm going to show you now a brief video again from my film. It talks about the difference between our website and eBay's website, and then there's a little song and dance from the Alibaba staff, which I think reflects the cultural difference of how people approach the internet in China compared to in the US. So we'll watch this short video.
The most important part of our strategy was to build a website that better fit the China market. And in developing our websites, the two companies pursued very different strategies. eBay moved to link its China site with its global platform, discontinuing features that were popular with Chinese users. Taobao built a website customized for the China market, adding features to help users build trust and make friends online. The website was infused with a softer and more human touch that appealed to China's youth. To eBay's Western managers, Taobao probably seemed too cute and flashy. But Taobao appealed to a new generation in China that used the internet with a certain innocence and optimism that eBay failed to appreciate.
淘宝的微笑刷新每天的奇迹，天天互联对面的你我，新的连接拉近着我们距离，我就在此刻更加爱上你。听我说，淘宝网连接你和我，创造幸福的生活。
Okay, so that video, once again, from an Alibaba staff event. By now, you probably already think it's a kind of a crazy company culture. But, you know, this is something, can you imagine if I went to work in Silicon Valley and I said, and I was working at eBay, I said, hey, let's all get together, hold hands, and sing about rainbows and unicorns and doing business that way. People say, no way. But the culture in China, the young people in China were so excited about the new opportunities out there that this new era of China's growth brought to them. They approached the internet in this, you know, sort of innocent way. And so we made the website much more human once again. And the first thing we did was we integrated chat into the marketplace. So on eBay, they had a little bit more of a cold platform where you basically were locked into the platform. But we made it fun, where if you want to chat, negotiate, again, just like at the Grand Bazaar, you want to have a tea and get to know your carpet salesman, you have that chance. And this is how people build relationships and trust. And so in China, commerce is really, really social. It's so social that, you know, this is a section of the Taobao website of couples who met on Taobao. Okay, they were chatting, talking about business, and then they just happened to decide to get married. Okay, this is not actually uncommon, but I never met any woman who said, "Oh, I met my husband on Amazon.com." You know, I clicked buy it, you know, instant buy, and he just came to the door in a box. So we allowed that human interaction, and an important part of it, and I think you'll understand it here, is all about trust building. So in China, you know, in the US, you have a lot of institutions that give people a greater degree of trust to do deals online. You have courts that have a rule of law. You have the Better Business Bureau, credit histories. China, you didn't have that. So traditionally in China, trust flowed sort of, when I look at these circles, it's how I think of it. So with your family, those are the people you trust the most. That's one reason there are so many family businesses. And then you go out of that, and friends, yeah, you trust your friends, you'll do business with them, but it's not as strong as with family. And then friends of friends and colleagues, you say, okay, these are folks I kind of trust because they were introduced through something that I believe in, but I'm going to be a little more careful. Then you get to total strangers, and there was not enough trust between total strangers to do e-commerce. So one of the ways we solved it was we made the website human, and we made it possible to chat with buyers and sellers. But another big part of it is just making the functions sort of solve these needs. So Alipay, which is the payment system for Taobao and Alibaba services, you know, the difference between that and PayPal, PayPal is really a direct payment. So you send the money to the seller right away. But then there's a problem. What if you don't get the product? So we solved it in China by making Alipay an escrow-based system. So the money was held by Alipay until the buyer looked at the product, examined it, and decided that, sure enough, they wanted the money to go off to the seller. So it's just one small example. Every sort of problem creates an opportunity, and because Alipay became so important, it is now one of the biggest financial institutions in China, and it's sort of spun off into a whole bank where they had a money market fund that they started, which raised over $90 billion in just a few months. So you can see how these things, when you solve these problems, it becomes a greater opportunity. So where did Alibaba go from there? So Taobao became very successful, this sort of grand bazaar marketplace, but what we realized is that some sellers, the brands and the big retailers, they wanted to sell the product themselves. And also the buyers said, you know what, this grand bazaar is nice, but I'm not so sure everything I'm getting is authentic, or is it truly a new product? I want a more kind of reliable shopping experience. So, you know, in Istanbul, you've got, what's it called, Istiklal Avenue? Everyone knows Istiklal Avenue, right? So that's a place where, okay, you can walk over from the Grand Bazaar, you know you're buying the product from the real Adidas store, getting the real product. And really that's what we launched, is something like that, which was called Tmall. Tmall is basically a shopping mall where the sellers on Tmall are the actual, either the brands themselves or authorized dealers. And there's a much more higher level of guarantees. But Tmall grew to become a really huge thing in China with you know, so many major brands. It's the main reason why Singles Day was such a popular shopping holiday. And this is where, if you're a Turkish business, you know, I'm not here to promote Alibaba, but if you want to go into the China market, you can go create a store on Tmall or on their competitors' websites, and it's actually much less expensive than going and setting up a physical operation. So you can kind of test out the market online, and then you can actually decide if you want to make a bigger commitment to the China market. So let me give you an example of how this works on Tmall compared to what we know from Amazon. So Amazon, if you look at it, they allow, look at this top banner for this Bosch Power Tools. They allow one banner up there, and that's really all the branding that's allowed. The reason is, in other countries, people are familiar with the brands from television, from history, from the reputation. So Amazon, I think their approach is more just, here's the product, you already know about it, come buy it at a low price. But right now I'm going to show you a video of how Tmall works. And I'm going to take you on a tour and sort of narrate over this. So this is a Tmall website for a company called H-Style. If you follow this mouse up here, you kind of know where to go on a tour. Has anyone ever bought a H-Style clothing before? Okay, probably not, because it's a totally new brand that was started by a seller, an entrepreneur selling on Tmall. And it's a Korean fashion brand, but really from China. You know, it's like a Haagen-Dazs ice cream. You think it's from Sweden, but it's from New Jersey. So this is what they have. So Tmall allows all of this place to put branding, and up there you could see just a minute ago all the different ways to rate a seller, once again to help with bridging the trust gap between buyer and seller. And then if you look at the top here, these little buttons that it's scrolling across, this is where, if you will go to the store and you have questions or you want recommendations, you click right in and you instantly have someone to help you. This isn't like you complain or have a simple question. This is almost like you walk into the storefront at Istiklal Street and there's a whole staff waiting to help you and answer your questions. And research shows that if you engage with a retailer, you're more likely to buy more products because you've made a bigger commitment to getting to know their products. And so there are people in warehouses from 8 in the morning until midnight every day just doing customer service to people visiting the site. And so here, this is a, you know, one of the items being modeled by what's known as like a Taobao model. So there's a whole industry of young men and women who they offer themselves as models for different sort of clothing that people are selling online. And then if you click in here, there's celebrities from Korea and from China, again, to help build the brand. And so this is an example on Tmall of, you know, some people would say, like some very traditional retailers would say, well, we don't even do online because going online degrades the brand. And actually, this sort of proves that you can build brands from scratch in this environment where people are shopping online. And so I think the important thing, in China, there is really, in the US, there's 4 times more retail space per person than in China. So retail really didn't get a chance to grow in a normal way in China. It all just sort of skipped online. And so what Alibaba has built by leapfrogging this whole system is an ecosystem where you have on the left the wholesaler, importers and exporters connecting to the retailers on Taobao and Tmall, and all linked through Alipay. And the important lesson is, I think Jack Ma has a saying, which is, in the West, e-commerce is just the dessert. In China, it's the main course. And really what it means is, instead of going down to a mall in a country like China now, people go online because it's just as easy, it's more fun, and then the delivery, to have someone bring something to your door, it's really only $1 or so, which is a pretty low price when you have products worth, you know, hundreds of dollars. So here's a lesson. This is about one country, one company in one country, but why it's important to you, I think, here in Turkey is that this is not just Alibaba phenomenon. This is not just a China phenomenon. This is spreading around the world. Because what Alibaba did was it showed that, yes, you can make e-commerce work in emerging markets, but you need to do it in a unique way that fits the market. So I just got back from India a couple weeks ago. And if you look at India right now, you have billions and billions of dollars going into the largest e-commerce marketplaces there. So Alibaba is one of the investors, and then eBay is investing, Amazon's investing $2 billion just in India alone. What this means is that India, if you ask me, is on the verge of its own sort of e-commerce boom, similar to China. Southeast Asia, the same thing is happening. A company called Tokopedia raised $100 million from a SoftBank, which was one of Alibaba's big investors. And so the same trends are happening. And in Latin America, there's some players there. They've been there for a while. But again, the mobile phone is what's changing it and bringing a shopping mall to everyone's pocket, but also bringing a storefront to everyone's pocket. Because you can take photos of products, post them online immediately, and create your own store online. And so the lesson is, and I know Turkey has its own thriving e-commerce, but what I would say is that with so much of retail moving online in emerging markets, we're at the beginning of a golden era for e-commerce. The China experience sort of proves it already. And if you're looking to export products to other countries, or you're an entrepreneur who wants to sell in other countries, keep an eye on this trend, and you may want to participate in it. You know, I have an example. I was in Lithuania. I met a guy. He buys handbags from India and sells them to Australia, based in Lithuania. And so this is sort of how import and export is growing. And you can be sitting here in Izmir running an import-export company without even bringing the products into Turkey. Of course, we all want the Turkish products to go overseas. That's the main goal. But you can run and grow businesses here without actually even leaving the country, connecting buyers and sellers in 2 different countries. So what are the main lessons, the main takeaways from this experience? So I kind of boiled it down, Alibaba and the 40 lessons, to a few main lessons I think are relevant here. So the first, I would say, is dream big, really big. Again, it would have been easy to just build a website for China. But one of the things I learned from Jack Ma is, you know, to dream even bigger all the time. Still, even today, that's a lesson I try to teach myself. You know, I made a documentary film, then I read, oh, Jack Ma made a film company. You know, you can always dream bigger, and I think that the only limits we we have are the ones we're setting on ourselves every day. Next is never underestimate yourself or your team. This is something I learned when I joined Alibaba. You know, when I joined Alibaba, Jack Ma was telling people, he said, look, I'm going to leave Alibaba in 4 years. I'm just a school teacher. I have no business experience. And so I'm going to have to hand the company over and leave. And he told the co-founders they should not expect to stay in the company for long because they didn't have experience. But what I learned watching Jack and watching the team is actually they stayed at the company and they were the best ones to grow it. Most of the really great internet companies or other companies are the ones that are still led by the original entrepreneurs. And so it's important not to underestimate yourself, and this is a lesson even Jack Ma learned, is that yes, even he, a school teacher, if he educated himself and learned enough, could grow and develop into a truly, global CEO. The next thing is never overestimate your competitor. It would have been so easy to be scared by our B2B website competitors or scared by eBay, which is a great company. They just didn't figure out the China market. But what we learned was that the bigger a company gets, the more weaknesses they have that are not obvious to you outside of the company. And so the bigger they get, the stronger they appear, but in a lot of ways, the weaker they are. And so as an entrepreneur who's pushing hard to grow something, don't get intimidated by really big companies. See their weaknesses as your opportunity. Next, I would say is leapfrog. Like in football, they always say, go to where the ball is going, don't go to where the ball is right now. And again, with the mobile phone, with e-commerce, this is where things are moving. And so starting e-commerce businesses, some businesses might be good just to be a retailer online from day one. You don't have to start with your store, physical store, and grow it. You can just start online from day one. Next is the bigger the problem, the greater the opportunity. Again, people said payment didn't work in China because people didn't have credit cards. And so by fixing the payment problem, the opportunity was much greater for us than it was for, let's say, a PayPal, where it was building on a very efficient system already. So entrepreneurs don't complain about problems, they solve them, and the bigger the problem, the greater the opportunity if you solve it. Next I would say is find opportunity in crisis. There's economic crises going on right now, even security crises going on. I just got back from Colombia where the Zika virus is a crisis, where people think, we may not even be able to do business anymore because we can't meet face-to-face. But again, in every crisis, there is some sort of an opportunity. And this, some of you may know if you've been to China, this is the word for crisis. And on the left-hand side, you have this character for danger. The right-hand side is the character for opportunity. And this is something I really learned at Alibaba, is not to be paralyzed by fear of the crisis, but instead stay calm, say, how can I fix these problems, and turn it into an opportunity for my business. So for example, we had our own crisis like the Zika virus, where at Alibaba, actually, we were operating in China at the time that SARS was a really big problem. And I went down with my colleague to Guangzhou, where SARS was really the main epicenter. And unfortunately, my colleague caught SARS, and me and her and 7 other employees were quarantined. And then 400 of us were quarantined as it spread. Fortunately, everyone survived, no one had a problem. But there was a problem in China when that happened, is that first we had to keep our company up and running, so everyone took their computers home and worked from home. But more importantly, importers and exporters could not meet face-to-face because buyers didn't want to go to China. So we saw the opportunity was to help grow and accelerate e-commerce as a way to do business in an era where it was difficult to meet face-to-face. And sure enough, e-commerce during that time period really took off, because finally people said, you know what, this e-commerce thing, I'm going to give it a try. now that I have to. So every crisis has some sort of an opportunity if you remain calm. And then the next thing is that in emerging markets, e-retail is all about marketplaces. That's because a marketplace solves all the common problems on behalf of all the buyers and sellers. And so instead of having an Amazon inventory model, it tends to be more marketplaces. And then the last thing I'll say is, focus on the customer and the rest will follow. So I used to always say, look at the customer and work backwards. And then I realized Jeff Bezos of Amazon was saying the same thing, so I can't say it anymore. It looks like I'm copying him. So Jeff Bezos had a great idea. The point is, forget everything you know about how it worked in your home country and build something by working backwards on what the customers really need. So now I'm gonna, if you're curious to see the film I made, I'm not selling it here, I'm just giving it out to you. You can go on Vimeo on demand, search Crocodile in the Yangtze, and just use the free coupon code. Instead of paying, just type in Open Sesame, and the door will open up to watch the film. So that concludes my talk. And are we doing questions or? No. Okay, so that's it for me. Thank you very much, and I really wish you the best for the conference. Thank you.
Okay. So I just have one question for you. What brought you to China in 1994? What was the main purpose?
Yeah, for me, what brought me to China, I wanted to go to where the biggest change and biggest opportunity was. So I went to learn Mandarin Chinese, and I got kind of hooked because China was in so much change, and I like to be sort of ahead of the trend, being a part of what's happening on the frontier.
Okay. They said that we have a little time for questions, so maybe we can take some, if there's any. Salondan sorusu olan var mı? Gibi tehlikeli bir soru sormak istiyorum. Ama herkesin duyması için mikrofon desteği verebilecek olan birisi var mı aramızda? Ben şurada kürsümüzdeki yedek mikrofonu vereyim hızlandırma adına. Bunu ulaştırabilirsek şöyle. Çok teşekkür ederiz. 1 numaralı mikrofon sanırım o. Kaç numara? Şurada bir soru var, pardon. En ön sırada bir soru var.
Öncelikle çok teşekkür ederiz.
Türkçe mi soracaksınız?
İngilizce soralım salonun.
Tamam, ya da yani tamam. He is going to ask me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have two things first of all. The last slide we couldn't take the address, so if you can show it again to my colleagues.
Okay. Okay. You can put up the last slide,
Son
please.
slide'a bir
I think many people couldn't copy the address.
Okay, they're arranging.
I'll just tell you. Open Sesame, easy to remember.
Açıl
the coupon code, and just search Crocodile in the Yangtze online. But if they put it up, that would be even better. Okay, yes.
They're preparing. Okay, do you have another?
First of all, I would like to thank Alibaba because I had a small company in Bodrum. We are raising fish, and we are exporting fish all over the world. And after Alibaba, our sales almost doubled using this e-commerce platform. And this is why I would like to thank Alibaba. First of all, I don't have any question.
Okay, thank you. This was not arranged, and I don't even work at Alibaba, but I appreciate the endorsement. Thank you.
Sorusu olan var mı salonumuzda? Evet, we have one more.
Organizasyon için çok teşekkür ediyorum. Gerçekten muhteşem. Konuşmacıya gene teşekkür ediyorum. Sorum şu. Cesaretlenmesi gereken noktada kendisine nasıl sihirli bir söz söylüyor da yola devam ediyor?
Jack Ma mı?
Evet.
Jack Ma. He says, is there a magic word that Jack Ma uses to encourage himself in a position like this?
Actually, the thing he always said, and it sounds very cliche, but he would always just say, he saw the Winston Churchill. What's that? Yeah.
We have the magic word, kismet. It solves everything.
I never knew what it meant, but he always would turn to me and say, kismet. So, that's all I want to say, yeah. Kismet. But he also said he really liked Winston Churchill's quote, never give up, so that's something, It sounds sort of like a school teacher would say to his kids, but actually it worked for him. And also Kismet.
Kısmet will work. Okay. Var mı başka bir sorunuz acaba? Şu arka sırada bir el görüyorum. Elinizi kaldırmaya devam ederseniz sizi görebilirler. Evet, getiriyorlar mikrofonu.
Merhabalar. Şu an Ali Baba olmasaydı, deneyimlerine ve gözlemlerine dayanarak iyi ticarette neye yatırım yapardı?
Güzel soru. She says if there was no Alibaba.com, what would be the state of e-commerce now on the internet?
You know, it's interesting. Some people have told me, they say, well, it's all inevitable. You know, sooner or later someone would make it anyways. But I actually think, you know, if I look at Apple, you know, I love my iPhone. Was that inevitable that the iPhone would come along? Maybe, but certain people, certain companies accelerate it, and that's what entrepreneurs do. They don't wait for the inevitable to happen. They create it. And so I think it might have happened. It may not have happened to this level. And the beauty of it is because it happened so quickly, it meant millions of businesses can make more money, find more opportunities. So I think entrepreneurs never think anything is inevitable. Entrepreneurs create the future rather than wait for it to happen.
Evet, bu kısmını çeviriyorlardır size zaten. 2-3 el daha görüyorum. Bu tarafa bakmıyorum diye şey olmasın, bu tarafta soru yok değil mi? Evet, siz dikkatlice dinleyin, soracağım. Buyurun, elinizi kaldırmaya devam edebilir misiniz? Evet, siz hanımefendi. Mikrofon en son kimde kaldı? Elektronik ticaret olmasaydı ne olurdu bilmiyoruz ama mikrofon olmazsa olmaz. Buyurun.
Burada genellikle öğrenci kesimi de fazla. Ben ne tavsiyeler verebilir bize onu sormak istiyordum.
Ne konuda?
Yani bu kadar başarılı olmasının arkasındaki tavsiyeler bize...
Peki. She says there are a lot of students among the audience. What would you recommend for them for success? Are there any universal values that you may share?
Yeah, I would just say, at least, you know, first, follow your own dream, not a dream that someone else made for you. And then focus on, in the business, focus on doing the right thing for the customer and not just trying to make investors happy to sell a business quickly. Do something really good for the long term that helps society. Thank you.
Teşekkür ediyoruz. Şurada bir soru var. Evet, elinizi cesaretle kaldırmaya devam edin. Buyurun. Hayır, bakın cesaret dedim, ne oldu gördünüz mü? Daha cesur. Evet.
Yes, I have a very simple question about the meaning of the Ali Baba because it is very familiar in Turkish, the name, how it's come, the Ali Baba name. I want to learn about this.
Yeah, so how did the name come about? It's funny, if you go to India, people think Alibaba is from India. If you go to Iraq, people think it's from Iraq. Turkey, oh, that's a Turkish story. So the beauty of it, the reason they chose it, you know, the other companies that we were competing with were global sources or vertical B2B net. And Jack Ma chose it because he said, Alibaba, anywhere you go in the world, you know the story of Alibaba. I learned the story of Alibaba when I was a kid. The second reason, the idea was Alibaba, when people think of that, it's open sesame to treasure. Okay, forget about the thieves part. Just open sesame to treasure. And he felt that for people using the internet for the first time to do business, this was an open sesame, suddenly opening a new world to treasure. And the third, more practical reason is Alibaba starts with an A. And back when Alibaba started, if something started with an A, it appeared first in the Yahoo search results, okay? So this was one way to get better position. But the main reason was the idea of open sesame.
Okay, but let's accept Alibaba is a Middle Eastern story.
Yeah, we accept that.
Okay.
I'll even say Turkey. It's an İzmir story.
Sanıyorum bir soru daha vardı bir yerlerde. Efendim? Evet, son soru. Son soru. Ha, buradaymış. Evet, buyurun. Mikrofonu ulaştırabilirsek diyeceğim.
Teşekkür ederim. Türkçe soru sormak istiyorum.
Buyurun. Buyurun.
Bir e-ticaret uzmanıyım. 8 senedir işim gereği e-ticaretle uğraşıyorum ama çok merak ettiğim bakış açısı. Yani dünya lideri bir firmanın başkan yöneticisi olarak baktığı gündemdeki bakış açısını vermek istiyorum e-ticarete. Fikir ve isim sahibi olan herkes bir e-ticaret sitesi açmaya meyilli olmuş oluyor ve burada da bir potansiyel kazanç bekleme gereksinimi olmuş oluyor. Ama baktığımız zaman da kendi tarafım açımdan tabii ki sürekli bir domain çöplüğü oluşmakta ve proje çöplüğü oluşmakta. Yorumlarını çok merak ediyorum ve düşüncelerini çok merak ediyorum bu konuyla ilgili.
Peki.
Teşekkür ederim.
Biz teşekkür ederiz. He has an e-commerce site and he is working with that for 8 years. And he asks, nowadays if you have a domain and an idea and sometimes a product, you may easily launch an e-commerce site. But it creates a kind of junkyard in this sector. So what are your thoughts about this new wave of e-commercialization?
Yeah, what I learned at Alibaba is there's a big difference between building a website and building a company. And a lot of people were maybe focused in the early days of e-commerce on just building a website. But just like I showed you here, when you see the Alibaba website, you know, anyone can make that homepage. The most important thing is building the company behind it. And so I don't know enough about your particular business, but I would say the internet is just one of many tools, but it's not the focus. Building a website is not the focus. The focus is bringing people together to buy and sell products, and then you have to decide what role does the internet play in that. But the website itself is only a small part of that.
Porter Erisman, it was an honor hosting you. Thank you. Hope to see you again in our restaurant.